Hi, everybody. I want to answer some questions that people have about scales and talk about scales a little bit. I love practicing scales. They make me feel really in touch with the instrument, and they help me get my sound where I want it to be and to see what the capabilities are of my instrument and to feel control with my body and my fingers and my mind with the instrument. So they really serve such a great purpose. And practicing scales doesn't have to be a chore. It can be a real experience and a real experience of discovery and love for our instrument. So I'm just going to start playing a simple one-octave D major scale, and then I'm going to answer some questions that people might have about practicing scales. So let's get right started. I'll play a D scale. Well, the first question I want to address is, should I use vibrato when practicing scales? Big question, it's almost controversial at this point. Some people say you should never ever practice the scale with vibrato because we need the pure sound and we need to hear the pitches. And another camp says, of course you should vibrate because that's part of your sound. Well, my side says, if you like to vibrate, then vibrate. And we also have to learn how to center our vibrato on a pitch, which is very helpful because, yes, we need to play in tune when we play scales, but most of the time when we're playing our pieces, and especially if we're playing a slow scale, when we play slow pieces, most of the time we are going to vibrate most of the time. And so if we're vibrating most of the time when playing, then it's very well worth our while to vibrate while we're playing scales. So let me show you, here's a scale without vibrato. Etc. But I really want to get the most out of my sound. What I'm looking for in that low one-octave slow scale is how can I maximize my sound and how can I have the most control over my sound and what kind of sound can I really get out of my instrument? I'm looking for a ringing sound, a warm, beautiful sound, a gorgeous, flowing sound. I'm always coming up with words for my sound so that I can have a vision of what I want the instrument to sound like. So now I'm going to add some vibrato and try to really add to the warmth and the beauty and the resonance of the sound. Like so. Well, another question that just came to my mind while I was playing that, if you'd noticed, I used two open strings. I used an open G string and an open D string. And the question is, should I use fourth fingers or should I use open strings when playing scales? My answer, whatever you want, because I'm so glad when someone's practicing scales. It really doesn't matter to me what fingering we use, but it matters that we're practicing the scales and we're trying to get better at our instruments and improve and find new things and make our instruments sound beautiful so that we can share our music with the whole world. So, yes, I'm going to use open strings because one of the things I try to do when playing is to get my instrument to be resonant and ringing. I try to get the instrument to ring. And what better way to have an instrument ringing than to play open strings because you get an automatic ring here. You see how beautifully that the note resonates and rings. Yes, that's beautiful. And as William Primrose said, the most organic part of our instrument is those open strings. So we should use them. So now I'm going to play the scale and try to get the notes to ring and especially show those open strings ringing. That is nice. Now I'm going to show my scale from this side and then address another question that people always have about playing the instrument and about scales. And that question is, should I keep my fingers down, or should I only have one finger on the string at one time? Well, I kind of think I use what I call the relay racer strategy. So when you're running in a relay race, you have a baton, and as you get to the next person in the relay on your team, you hand off the baton. And there are 3 steps of the baton moving from one person to the next. The first step is the person running at first has the baton in his or her hand. And then when the other person starts to run at the same speed, and there's this point when both people are holding the baton, getting ready for the handoff, and then the person that was running before lets go of it, and the new person has the baton. So that's kind of how I look at my fingers. So if I'm playing a first finger, it's down. But when my second finger comes, then I have both down. And if I want more vibrato, then I can pick up the first finger. Same with the third. Like so. Like that. So that's kind of how I operate. Sometimes I do keep my fingers down because it's more efficient. Like that. Now, what I'm looking for in the scales, as I mentioned before, is control of my instrument. I want total control of the instrument. Now, if I'm playing a scale that goes up and then back down, and I keep the fingers down, then all I have to do is lift the fingers up, and that's very efficient. When we talk about the law of economics, that things need to be close to each other, then that makes it much easier, because if you count the number of motions that I do, that's 1. Okay, there's 1, 2. So I have down and down. That's 2 motions. But if I lift the finger, that's 2 motions. A down finger and a lifting finger. And then another down, lift. Then I have 4. So I actually have twice as many motions when I'm picking my fingers up. And I'm always trying to minimize the number of things that I'm doing, or minimize the number of motions that I'm using. So I'm going to try to make things as simple as absolutely possible. So that's an important thing. So sometimes I'll play 2 fingers and lift one up so I can vibrate easier, like so. Like that. Now, when I was vibrating my third finger, it was interesting because I can vibrate like that, but if I keep my second finger down, my second finger can almost help my third finger vibrate. And the same thing is true with the fourth finger, actually. When I play from third, it's really helpful sometimes to have the fingers next to each other when you're vibrating, because it kind of supports the finger, especially the fourth, which is sometimes a little bit weaker than the other fingers. We don't want it weaker, but sometimes it is. And then the third finger can actually help the fourth finger to vibrate. So let me just show a scale there. Now I'm going to change my system a little bit and stop using the open strings and use fourth fingers so I can practice using vibrato on the fourth finger helped by the third finger. Like so. And you'll see when I do that my fourth finger vibrato is just as good and just as effective as the other fingers. And that's really, really, really good for me. Now I'm going to go to the next octave. So now I played a 1 octave D major scale in the lower octave. And now I'm going to kind of experiment with my D string and my A string. So now I'm going to be playing around the whole range of the instrument, which is awesome. So I'm going to start with an open D. Now you notice when I play that third finger, it has a sympathetic vibration with the open G string, which is good for me. And I listen to that warm ringing sound, and that means that my intonation is going to get better. Like so. You can hear that D ringing over there. So that's what I'm looking for. And also, one thing that I always do when I play that particular scale, which is a great one to practice, is I match my first finger together with the open A string, which creates what we call a perfect fourth, and that should sound incredibly beautifully in tune. So let's try that. When it sounds in tune, it's very ringy, and I call it that there's no crossing. What do I mean by crossing? Well, let me play it out of tune for a second. You see how you can hear that something's in between those two notes, but a perfect interval always sounds open. We tune by perfect intervals like a fifth, so the instrument sounds very open, and then when we play a fourth, it's also very open. You notice it's really hard to play a fourth in tune, and as I'm playing, I'm always tuning. I use my ear, and even as I'm playing the same note, I have to keep adjusting slightly, because somehow, I don't know how this happens, but somehow even if you're in the middle of the note and you just hold it there, it probably won't be in tune by the time you finish. So your ear needs to work all the time. And that is another reason why we play scales all the time, to improve our ears. The better our ear gets for the sound, for the pitch, for everything that we're doing, the more beautiful our sound is, and the more in touch we are with our instrument, and the more beautifully we can play, which of course is our ultimate goal, to play beautifully. So let me go through that scale again. I'm going to keep my fingers down this time as I go. You'll notice on the D string, I kept them down the whole time, and over on the A string, I kind of did that relay so that at the end I could vibrate only on my third finger. And I also thought of something else that I want to tell you about, because this is really important. And when I practice scales, I practice this all the time. And when I play pieces, I incorporate this into the pieces. It is part of the way that I approach the instrument and that I play the instrument. And that is, when I cross the strings, I need a link between the two strings. That means I don't want to do this. If you notice, when I cross the string, there's this point when my fingers are all off and my bow is going to cross the string. So it's kind of like everything comes off the instrument. But what I'm going to do is that when I cross the string, I'm going to keep my last finger down and then move my arm over just a little bit so that the A string would be clear in this case. And then I'm going to go across the string with a link to the other string. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go straight forward. All fingers down, move my arm over. Once I'm playing the A, then I lift my hand, get set up. That's a great way to practice. When I see students do this, I notice that they lunge for the A string, and you don't have to. It's great just to play the open A string for a while. So here's a good way to do that. Ready, cross, lift, hold the A for a long time, then play. What not to do. Is to lunge to the next string like that. Well, that's really helpful to me. Now I'm going to play a 2-octave scale, so all I have to do is take the bottom octave and the top octave and put them together. And you'll see I'm going to work on playing everything together like that. And it's going to help me do so many things. My ultimate goal, play beautifully, have a lot of control, have a real system of how I play that I can use all the time. I mean, this is a very, very long-winded topic, but so important. But these are the roots of how to become a great player. So let me show that 2-octave scale. Like so. Now I'm going to just do that from the other side so you can see how I put my fingers down when I come down the scale and when I go up the scale and how I'm operating. You know, it's really early in the morning here. I just want to make a comment about that. When I first started the video, I kind of wasn't warmed up, but just from doing the video and showing all these ways of doing the scale like this, I feel ready for the day of playing and nice and warmed up. It's a great feeling. So I hope that you really, really practice this way. I'm going to close the video with my playing the scale up and down one more time and give you a couple of different views. But I hope this gives you a start in kind of reformulating a way and a kind of a way that we think about playing scales and kind of a method that we can use that when we play the scales that it's so effective for our playing. So until I see you the next time, happy practicing, and here's that scale again.